Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Penguin Live TV. My name is Steven. I am your host again tonight, and joining me tonight we have the wonderful Tom. Come and say hello, Tom.
Hi everyone, welcome to all the newbies, welcome to all the regulars. 921 penguins last night. Whether it goes up or down, time will tell. It is a natural event. I'll be keeping an eye on the Facebook feed, and any interesting questions we'll try and pass on. We can't get to everything. We'll see how we go, and have a great night.
All right, thanks, Tom. Fantastic. Now, it looks a little bit misty out there tonight. We have two penguin counters who are out counting our penguins. In that white building at the top left of the screen, you can see, well, you might not be able to see her. It's Carrie in there. She's been here for a few years now. She's got a lot of experience here at the parade. And there's this orange figure in the distance. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on them for you guys. All the way down here, this is Deb. This is her first night counting the penguins. So she'll be counting, oh, it's gone a little blurry. It's having a hard time focusing in the sea mist. She'll be counting the penguins in the distance on the very, very far end of the beach. So wishing the best of luck to Deb on her first night counting. It's not an easy job, and I know she's a little bit stressed out by it. And she says, what if I don't get it 100% right? So don't worry, Deb. It's not a big problem if you miss one or two penguins here or there. We always ask our rangers to do their best and try and be as accurate as possible. And if they miss one or two, it's not the end of the world. But we do try and get it as close to 100% as we can. Our penguins are not here just yet. I've been scanning the beach. I haven't heard anything on the radio either, which means that we've got a bit of time before the penguins will show up. I'll keep my camera out on the water. It's a bit misty out there. Don't know if there's a fog rolling in or not. We'll just have to wait and see. I have mentioned before that fog does tend to frighten our penguins away from coming home. It doesn't frighten them. It just means that penguins can't really find their way home. You see some interesting behaviors on foggy nights. Now, I hope that doesn't happen tonight, because while fog is amazing for us rangers to experience because it's a really unique event, it does make for poor viewing. Unable to see the penguins, unable to catch what they're doing, and the penguins don't like to come across the beach in the fog either. So fingers crossed, no fog tonight. Fingers crossed we get some good numbers of penguins. But as Tom said, we'll just have to wait and see. And this live Penguin TV is being brought to you by the Phillip Island Nature Parks. We are a visitor-funded, not-for-profit organization, which means that we do really rely on tourism to help fund our conservation work, because we are at heart a conservation organization. We're helping to protect the penguins here on the Semmelines Peninsula. About 32,000 breeding adult penguins live here, including some younger ones when the breeding season is underway. But as it's not the breeding season right now, we're closer to that 32,000 mark of penguins on our island, or on our Semmeline Peninsula. We're also taking care of other places around Phillip Island. And if I could scan across this entire island, in the distance you might have been able to see Cape Woolamai, but it's a little bit too misty to see it right now. Occasionally you can see a little flash of a light in the distance. That is a lighthouse off Cape Woolamai. And we care for the entire southern stretch of this island. It's pretty much under our jurisdiction. We're taking care of roughly 1,800 hectares of land, which equals almost around 20% of Phillip Island. And we're taking care of all of the native animals and plants that are here, doing our best to make this a safe place for wildlife. It's a lot of work for us to do, and we really do rely on tourism to help fund our work. So as we can't have visitors here to the organization right now, as nobody is allowed to come see our penguins with the restrictions we have in place, we are asking that when we do open our doors, if you could come visit us, that would be very helpful. It would help our penguins, it would help our koalas, it would help our bandicoots, it would help all of the native animals and plants we have here, even some special ones, the bushstone curlews, which we've just brought into our koala conservation reserve. We've got 2 bushstone curlews. I don't think we have more than 2. The 2 I know of are called Purple and Blue, because their bands are purple and blue, although we affectionately call them Rachel and Elsa. We've got a couple of bushstone curlews that we're trying to bring here. We really like taking care of threatened species, and the bush stone curlews are a threatened species here in Victoria and also threatened in New South Wales. So we do a lot of work doing this important caring for those animals who need a bit of extra help. Oh, fantastic. So Tom did mention we had 921 penguins last night, which is a really good number of penguins during our winter season. We're not really expecting the breeding season to start for another month or so, but a few penguins here and there do get a bit eager to get the breeding season started. So you may occasionally see some partnering up this early on, but it's a very rare event. I don't want you watching from home to think, ooh, we might see some baby penguins. It's not going to happen right now. It's way too early in the season. And well, if you were watching me last night, you know anytime I make a prediction about what's going to happen, nature proves me wrong. So if you're lucky, maybe it'll prove me wrong tonight. But highly unlikely that we'll be seeing any young penguins at this time of year. That's definitely a spring and summer occasion for our penguins. And we're still smack dab in the middle of winter. Although here on Phillip Island today, the weather was absolutely stunning. It felt like summer for a little bit. Felt like it was at least 20 degrees and sunny and no wind. A beautiful night, a beautiful day to spend outside. I knew I was doing a lot of gardening, keeping myself outside, soaking up as much vitamin D as I could. Hopefully these penguins had just as beautiful of a day out on the ocean, catching their fish. I hope a lot of them managed to catch a lot of fish, fatten themselves up, and they'll be coming home for us tonight. We'll just keep our eyes on the water. I keep getting distracted by this little spider web that's dangling over the lens. It's going to be tricky to spot any rafts of penguins because that mist out there is obscuring our vision a little bit. So it's a bit tricky, but we'll keep our eyes open. And all you eagle-eyed viewers out there, please keep your eyes open as well. And we'll should probably always forget to do this right at the start. I mean to do this at the start of every stream as an acknowledgement of country. And I always feel really bad about jumping in onto these after I've been talking for a while, but we always like to acknowledge the country we are on. Like to acknowledge the Bunurong as the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to their elders, both past, present, and emerging. And maybe leave us a comment. Who are the traditional custodians of the land where you are viewing from? It's always important to know who the traditional custodians are. And if you don't know, a quick Google search will answer that question for you. It won't take any time at all. Now, I am obviously not Australian. The traditional custodians of the land where I am from would be the Nakota Nation from Canada. And I also like to pay my respects to them as well, because I'm a firm believer that the country where you grew up on has a profound impact on who you are as a person. And a lot of us tend to move around a bit. And if you maybe grew up in a different area with different traditional custodians, maybe have a think about who the traditional custodians are of the land where you grew up from. Because if you're like me, you probably spent a lot of time outside, outdoors, in the world during your formative years. And I'm sure if you're passionate about nature, it might have had an impact as well. Just a bit of an interesting thought to process there. Now, as we're waiting for our penguins to show up, because I can't see any, maybe you can see them in the comments. Maybe let us know in the comments if you spotted any. But speaking of the comments, we might drop over for a few questions if we have any yet, Tom. It's a bit too early yet.
Lots of questions about what happened to the feral cat. Was it caught?
So I haven't had a chance to talk to Stu all right, about the feral cats. Last night, if you didn't watch our stream, I was talking about how we're doing an amazing job controlling the fox. Got rid of the foxes off Phillip Island, and we're doing a really good job controlling the feral cat population. And I think 30 seconds later, a big fat feral cat walked right above my head. You can see on that top screen on the Penguin Highway, just started walking bold as brass towards the camera and continued on into the colony, making a fool of myself. I haven't talked to Stu, who would be our pest control officer. No, he was texted by Roland last night. I don't believe he caught the cat just yet, but he is aware of its position, and he'll be setting up traps to make sure that we capture that cat and give it to the Shire to make sure that it is dealt with appropriately, to make sure it's not somebody's house cat that's just been let loose in the wild. We want to make sure that we are catching the feral cats and dealing with them in the appropriate manner. But as far as I know, no information on that. Maybe they caught it and they just, I haven't heard about it yet. But as far as I know, no, we have not caught it yet. But these things do take time. We do our best to get on them really quickly. But with the lockdown restrictions and it being a weekend as well, the availability of staff to get out here and do the work is a bit more restricted than we would like. I know during any other time of the year when the restrictions are not in place, they'd be able to get out here for longer periods of time and really get that work done. But good to know that you guys are curious about that cat. It was a bit of an interesting one last night. It definitely threw me for a loop when I saw it. But it just shows you that it is important that we continue doing the work that we are doing here. It's a never-ending battle. We're battling the feral animals here. We're also battling the invasive plants that we have here. The plants is an ongoing battle. For those of you who are gardeners at home and you have a little plot where you grow your vegetables or your flowers, you know that weeds are always coming back. They always encroach onto your garden and you have to continually pull up those weeds. It's a never-ending battle. Now imagine you have 1,800 hectares of land that you've got to get rid of all the weeds on. It is a massive battle for us to get rid of all of those weeds, and it'll be ongoing for a very, very long time. Who knows if that's a battle we can ever win, but we can reduce the impact that these invasive weeds have on the local environment. And it's the same with feral animals as well. With so much land that they can hide in, it's a lot of area for us to cover and to make sure that it's safe for our local plants and animals. Oh, the penguins are making us wait a little bit longer tonight, aren't they? That's just fantastic. Builds the suspense, keeps us guessing as to what's going to happen. I keep thinking I see little dark patches out in the water, but I'm not sure if that's just my eyes playing tricks on me or not. The mist really does make it hard to spot them. I'm going to zoom in on what I think might be a raft. I'm sure the camera's not going to catch this. It's probably going to have a very hard time focusing. Right in the middle of the screen, that might be a raft. I think it might be. Maybe let us know in the comments if you think that's a raft, if it's clear enough for you to see. But that's good. At least there are penguins out there. There are penguins who want to come home. It's definitely not too misty right now. It's not going to put off our penguins from coming home. It might, they might hesitate for a little bit, but I doubt it's going to scare them. There's definitely good visibility along the beach. You can see the under end of the beach. During the really foggy nights, you just have a very soft glow of the lamps in the distance, but you wouldn't be able to see anything on that side of the beach. So our penguins have plenty enough visibility to make their way home tonight. All right, as we're waiting for our penguins, Tom, how about some more questions? Always good to have questions.
This is from JD. What's a common question that kids ask when they come to the penguin parade?
What's a common question that kids ask? You might be able to answer this one, Tom. You are one of the most experienced rangers in dealing with the kids here.
Believe it or not, we probably get more interesting questions from kids than adults, in my experience.
Yeah, we sure do.
And certainly ones that really stump us, which is good, which means that it shows they're interested in doing their research. We are going to write a book one day. Some of the best questions we've had over the years is what time's the next show start? When are the big ones coming in? And when's the next good word coming in? So yeah, people keep forgetting it's a natural event.
Yeah, I like that. We get some really funny questions here at the parade, and some really stump us. I remember actually my very first shift where I wasn't working with somebody else, where I was put out onto the boardwalks and just left to talk to people. A man came up for me, this is 5 or so years ago, maybe 6 years ago. A man came up to me and said, "How long ago did Australia drift apart from Antarctica?" And I said, "I don't know. That wasn't in the penguin facts that I read earlier. I can't answer that one." I was like, a long time ago. So we really do sometimes get chucked those curveball questions. And some that just make me pause and scratch my head. I remember I was talking with a school group once, and a young girl from Melbourne was curious, and I don't know how much experience they had with nature. They came up to me and she looked at the penguins and she was like, so are these penguins, are they like alive? And I just looked at her and I thought, yes, our penguins are alive. And tried to figure out what she was getting at. Apparently, she didn't think that these penguins were real penguins. They thought that was just maybe a robotics show that was happening. And it just a bit of a head scratcher, that one. So you get the most wonderful questions from kids. And it's just amazing to see the excitement light up in their eyes when they get to see this natural event occur right in front of them. They really experience something truly spectacular. All right, so as you can see, right on the screen in front of you, there is this lovely big group of penguins about to cross the beach. And maybe put a guess in the comments as to how many penguins you think are going to cross in this first group. It's quite a large group. I'm not sure if it's as big as our group last night. Might even be bigger. Luckily for me, I wasn't counting last night. We had a very experienced rangers counting last night, which was good to see. Sally and Kat were our counters last night. We'll see how their numbers compare to the counters this evening. I am moving the camera a little bit. Hopefully you can get a good view of these penguins. Give us a few guesses. You think it's 30 penguins, 50 penguins, 100 penguins? We get some quite eager guessers from now and then who say, there's 700 penguins in this group. There's not that many in this group. I'll just make it clear for you. Yeah, definitely not that many in this group. A group of 700 penguins would be a solid, thick line of penguins all the way down to the water's edge still. Ooh, they're straightening it out, almost single file for you. A little distracting seeing that spider's web just floating in front of the penguins. It's kind of a cool effect, but we just got the numbers sent through. Well, Tom was probably just going to let us know if we had any good guesses. But yes, I do have it in here. So you got a couple of minutes left.
Sorry, Tom, what was that number in that group?
Oh, Tom didn't hear the number. But put your guesses through. You still got a couple of minutes left before we announce it for everybody. But yes, here they come, making their way over the rocks. It's not easy for our penguins to really navigate some of these rocks. Some of these rocks are bigger than they are, so it's a bit of an effort for them to scramble their way over the top, but they are pros at making their way. Their feet have really good claws on them, great grips on their feet, so even though they might slip and fall a couple of times here and there, they do very well at making their way over, down the hill, and waddling their way back to their homes. Each penguin is always going back to their own unique home. The males are the ones who tend to own the burrow, the home. They're the ones who fight to defend it. And our penguins, while they don't mate for life, I like to say they do mate for life, just with lots of different penguins. The males will try to keep their burrow for themselves, and the females, if they don't like their partner from last year, they'll move along and find a new partner in a new burrow somewhere else. So lots of different penguins, both males and females, are coming home right now. I can never give you an exact number of how many females versus how many males. I like to say it's roughly 50-50, depending on the night. You might get more of one sex than the other. And these guys are making their way up the hill. I don't think Carrie ever got back to us about the numbers, but I did hear it.
136, I think.
136? Fantastic. So we had 136 penguins crossing in that first group, which is more than our first group last night. I'm trying to scratch my head remembering what the first group size was last night. Maybe 80 or so penguins in the group last night. But that is a really good start to the evening. And there these penguins are going up the hill, back home. Don't see any goose around this time, which is lucky for our penguins. Oh, they're coming along on the highway. Let's have a pop over to the highway camera, and we can watch our penguins waddling their way along here. Off you go, little guys. And these ones are in a bit of a hurry. My camera's not keeping up with them. Sometimes they really get a wriggle on. They get their waddle on as they're waddling their way up the pathway. And then in 10, 20 meters, they're going to hit a resting spot where they just stop and rest for a while, preen each other, preen their own feathers. And after they've rested for a couple of minutes, then they continue their waddling along. There they go. Lots of penguin bums to look at as they make their way back. All right, let's go back to the main... I love that little guy just waddling. They keep coming. There must be more. It's really good first group size. All right, let's go back to the main camera and see if there's any penguins crossing on the beach. You usually get 1 or 2 groups that are nice and quick to start with. No. All right. I'll leave the camera here just to see if any more, and swap back to the highway camera because this is where all the action is happening right now. Lots of penguins making their way along the boardwalks, next to the boardwalks, splashing through the puddles on a journey home. Now this window that you can see on the right side of the screen that's just above my head, that is for the underground viewing area. You would be able to come here when we open up again if you wanted to buy those underground viewing tickets and be able to watch these penguins walking right in front of your noses as they make their way back. Let's have a look to see. There's quite a few messes here on the pathway that would make Jordan very excited. Nope, no more penguins coming this way. That happens, we'll just keep our eyes open on the beach and see what happens here. Oh, they're making us wait. That first group made us wait, and the second group is nowhere to be found either. Might try our luck scanning along the beach. I'll see if I can spot any other penguin pathways for you. Now we've got this little stand you can see right here. And sometimes in those rocks there's a group of penguins. In the distance, I can't tell if those are penguins or if those are seagulls. Oh, little penguins down here for sure. The visibility is not so great. Oh my goodness, I missed the penguins that are right above my head. Whew. Well, we got this little guy we can focus in on. He's having a look inside the underground viewing, trying to find his way inside. They see a nice open area that's undercover. They really want to get into it because that might be a good area for a burrow. But unfortunately for our little penguins, they're not allowed inside. They can't get their way in there. That's a secure area for people only. All right, and these guys seem to be pausing and looking around. I'm not sure what they're looking out for. I'm keeping my eye out for that goose, Baron von Gustav. He's been a bit cheeky recently, causing a bit of chaos for our penguins. But I don't see him around, which is good news for our penguins. All right, let's keep looking around. There's always more penguins to be found. I love hearing Deb. She's making lots of calls over the radio, trying to let Carrie know how many penguins she's counting off the stand in the distance. Ooh, is that some penguins down in the water down here? There we go. Really tricky to get the camera to focus on these penguins in such poor lighting at such a distance. But they're there, and I imagine that these little penguins are hucking their hearts out. They want some more penguins to come join them. There's safety in numbers for our penguins. And when they're trying to find each other on the ocean, they make this hucking sound, which I know Jordan and Megan love to huck every single stream. They always huck to say goodbye, which is a bit unusual because our penguins, they're not trying to huck to say goodbye to each other. They're trying to attract each other together when they're hucking. So it's more of a huck to say hello rather than goodbye. But they'll be out on the water, and because our penguins sit so low in the ocean, their heads are just above the water, just by a little bit, just by a few centimeters really, they don't have as good of visibility over long distances, especially with the waves crashing all around them. They can't see that far away when they're sitting on top of the water. So the most reliable way for them to find each other out on the ocean is to huck. A short, sharp sound, a huck, 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 that they make out on the water, and that sound travels much farther than their vision can reliably give them. So it's sound that really means, here I am guys, come to me, let's get together. And they'll be hucking together to form up those big rafts on the ocean. And these poor penguins, the 5, 6, 7 of them, however many there are, they probably weren't so lucky to join one of the bigger groups. So they'll be making their way across the beach nice and slowly. We'll see if they're feeling brave enough to make their way entirely across the beach or if they might get scared. I find sometimes when our penguins are not in such large groups, they can be a bit more timid about the beach crossing. They don't have that secure feeling that they do with other groups. But they're walking across. They look pretty brave to me. They're standing quite upright and proud. Trying to focus in and get some good views. Yeah, I don't think they're going to get too spooked. You can sometimes tell when a penguin's getting really nervous if they're keeping a low profile, keeping their head down on the beach. They don't want to draw attention to themselves. And these guys, they're standing far more upright. They're feeling quite calm and collected, which is good to see. No geese flying overhead to give them a fright. How about some more questions, Tom? There's always lots of questions in the comments.
This is from Claire. What do you do about the weed problem in the colony?
About the weed problem in the colony, we do have a lot of conservation staff here who are constantly coming through. They're spraying the weeds to make sure that they don't grow or don't encroach too much into the penguin colony. Those that are particularly troublesome will have to chop down and then spray the roots as well. It's an ongoing battle, but it's basic weed removal, like in any garden, where you try and pull out the weeds if you can, and if you can't, you spray them to control them. And there's a lot of work that we do to make sure that the area for our penguins is growing the naturally good plants, the native plants, sorry. And so we do a lot of revegetation as well. So we might spray an area from weeds, and then after a while, we'll plant some native vegetation, give them a bit of protection from the wallabies, because the wallabies love to eat the baby plants. They're apparently the tastiest plants in the world to them. So we give them some protection from the wallabies to make sure that they won't perish before they have a good chance at establishing themselves. And hopefully, in time, those native plants will grow and grow and grow bigger and bigger, and they should be able to outcompete the invasive weeds that have more of a delayed start than they do. So we try and give our native plants a big enough head start that they'll outcompete the weeds that are growing up around them. What's this little penguin doing here? Just hanging around. But there are some nasty invasive weeds we have here. I know Tom and I were doing a bit of planting. I don't know if you did much weed removal during the last year's lockdown. Yeah, we did a lot of weed removal. We did a lot of planting as well. I personally hate boxthorn with a deep passion. It is an evil plant. Those thorns that get stuck into you as you're pulling it out. Apple of Sodom is no joke either. I'd be glad to get rid of all of those plants off Phillip Island if we could. They are invasive. They don't belong here. I'm sure they're beautiful in their own habitats where they are native. Personally, not a fan. Another large group that's coming there, making their way across the beach with the spider web in as well. Just drifting across lazily in front of these penguins. Almost feels like Halloween. Wow. Now, Tom did give me the 5-minute warning. I don't think we're going to end it that soon yet, Tom. I know we probably should. I'll take the grief for this one because this is just our second group of penguins crossing the beach. We'll wait until at least another group of penguins before we wrap it up too soon. And that group above my head, they're making their way across in front of the screen, but we'll focus on this larger group on the main beach. Wow, that was a big group. So maybe put a guess in the comments really quickly if you can. We'll be announcing that in just the near future of how many penguins were in this group that crossed the beach. It was bigger than last group. That's my hint to you. Fantastic. Love to see these guys making their ways over the rocks on their journey home. Now we're seeing a lot of what we expect to see in the colony at this time of year is more just burrow maintenance, making sure that the penguins still have a burrow to call home, making sure it's still standing before the breeding season really gets underway. Because a lot of our penguins, they dig burrows underground underneath bushes. And if you ever do any sandcastle building in sandy areas, you know that sand is not the most reliable structure to make a home out of. Even if you want to make a castle or a tunnel, it's going to collapse if it gets rustled too much or even just given enough time. It'll probably collapse. So these penguins are constantly renovating their burrows, constantly making sure they're structurally sound so they don't collapse in. It takes a lot of work. It's constant care and effort. And for those of you lucky enough to be homeowners who are watching from home, you know how much work has to go into your own home as well, even though it's more stable than one of our penguin burrows. If you neglect your home too much, it's going to fall into disrepair and will become unlivable. So our penguins, they're excellent homeowners themselves. They're responsible homeowners. They're coming home, doing all of that important work, making sure that their homes will be suitable, especially if they're going to be starting a family in the near future. All right, I was expecting them to make their way around this corner. There they are. Didn't keep me waiting too long. I love to see these guys waddling their way towards the cameras, heads tilting side to side, always on the lookout for anything interesting in the colony, whether it's a danger or a change of scenery. They're always keeping their eyes open. They're on the alert on their journey home. Fantastic. Went a little bit high there. There we go. And yeah, these beautiful penguins, they might spend, well, they'll at least spend tonight here on land. They might spend a couple of nights, maybe 3 nights on land if they've got a very full tummy. But that would be, anything more than that, would be starting to get very hungry for our penguins. There's no real need for them to spend that much time on land at this time of year. During the breeding season, when they're trying to attract a mate, they might spend a bit more time on land looking to attract a mate, making sure that they attach those bonds with their mates for the season. But right now, I think that these guys would likely be spending short amounts of time on land, making sure their burrows are good, and when they start to get hungry, they'll be heading back into the ocean and making sure their bellies are full. Because nothing says I am an attractive penguin to a potential mate than having a big build on you, making sure that you're large in size, letting the females know that you are a good adult, that you are able to catch enough fish, that you can provide enough food to potential offsprings. All right, fantastic. Let's swap cameras back to the main beach to see if we see any more. Oh, it's a bit quiet. To see a group in the distance. We'll see if this group does get any bigger. You never know. There might be more penguins out in the water debating whether they want to join this group or maybe start a next group. But it's just a matter of waiting for our penguins. But we will start to wrap up pretty soon. We got the 5-minute call 5 minutes ago, and I don't want to push our luck too much this evening. But before we go, do we have any good questions, Tom? No more questions? Oh my goodness. Oh, well, that's just a shame. I love questions, and I love those questions that stump me. Those ones where I don't really know if I know the answer to. I can make a good guess, but I'm not 100% sure on the answers. So if you do have any difficult questions to ask me, any tricky questions, please send them through. Love to give my best go at giving an answer for you. I just saw this little group of penguins that went down around under the Penguins Plus boardwalk. We'll see if they show up on this camera. Gotta swap the camera. There we go. We can see their heads bobbing around. There they come. Fantastic. And here they are, waddling their way through. There's no goose tonight, which is good for our penguins. These guys, they have a stressful life. Out in the ocean, always trying to catch enough fish to survive. There's no need to add a goose into their daily stressful lives, especially when they're on land. Land is not their most comfortable environment to be in. They're much more suited to being out on the water, catching fish. They're great swimmers, and they are quite slow and a little bit awkward on land. There they go, heading down the boardwalk. All right, one last chance on the main camera to see if there's any penguins crossing the beach. And if not, that's all right. We might, yeah, it looks like there's nothing too much happening on the beach right now, which might be a good time for us to end. I do want to thank you all for tuning in again tonight. I forgot to look at the roster and see who's working tomorrow night. It won't be myself tomorrow night. I get the job of counting our penguins tomorrow evening, which will be a lot of fun. So tune in tomorrow night. I'll be sending through the first group's numbers over the radio, and I'll let you know how many are coming in the first group. But I do want to thank you all for tuning in. We will be continue doing this for a while longer yet, so please keep watching. Tell your family and friends to watch as well. We'd love to share penguins with you and with the world. really is fun doing this. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.